know, we've been doing our Close the Camps actions here at the church, and so many of you have been involved in it, and it's been your determination, the determination of people in this community that has kept this going. We've been doing this now since July 21, and there's a very special person in this room right now whose inspiration really gave us the spark for it. And she's going to be speaking soon, so I'm really anxious to hear what she says. But we, in the course of things, decided that we wanted to reflect, and because it was available, the words of those who have been in detention. Particularly the children. Started out with the children. We were able to get the words of the children, and some of the other detainees. We put it together in a little theater piece, and that this is a work in progress. This is our first reading, so hopefully it'll be enlightening or inspiring. But so that's my introduction to this, and we are going to take it away.
Thank you, Bruce. We raise our voices in protest, in witness, both inside and outside the walls where we worship or gather, with a demand that morality and humanity compels us to raise no more kids or anyone in cages. 70,000 children, 70,000 children held in camps, in cages in this past year. 70,000 children, lives twisted and damaged by an immoral political authority. 5,400 of these precious children taken from their parents' arms. What words do the children speak? Today we hear their words. Then we should find our own words to say. We cannot be silent.
The words of an 8-year-old from Honduras. I want to see my parents. I spoke with my mother once by telephone, but I do not know where she lives or when I will be able to see her.
The words of a 15-year-old with a 6-year-old brother from Honduras. We aren't allowed to go to the bathroom at night. I have to put diapers on my brother at night since he isn't allowed to use the bathroom. He didn't wear diapers for years because he is 6 years old.
The words of an 11-year-old from El Salvador. We cry a lot, and the other kids in the cell also cry. There was a 4-year-old boy in my cell for 15 days. He said he came with his father, but they separated them. We are all alone. Every time I talk about my family, I start to cry.
The words of a 12-year-old with sisters 8 and 4 from Ecuador. There is one very young girl in my room, only 6 years old, who doesn't know where she is from or where she's supposed to go. I do not know what will happen to her.
The words of a 5-year-old from Honduras. I don't know how long I'll be here. I'm frightened, scared, and sad. It's cold here at night when we sleep.
On any given day, more than 50,000 immigrants are held in places of severe psychological and physical torment in hundreds of prisons in camps across the country. In the past 1.5 years, 41 detainees in the Yuba ICE prison in Marysville, California, have tried to take their own lives. 41 in the past year and a half.
The words of a woman held in Yuba. Some of the officers here are very abusive. My mental and physical disabilities have increased. It's cruel, inhumane, degrading. I'm without physical activities. I'm mistreated, afflicted, confused, grieved, defiled, overwhelmed, persecuted. I have no strength. I'm crushed continually. I feel myself in darkness.
The words of a trans woman held in a private prison. As soon as I was detained, I experienced the horror of the private detention companies perpetuated, and my mental health has suffered ever since. Loneliness and injustice has brought me to the brink of suicide multiple times. It felt as though that there was no hope for almost 3 years. My American dream was a nightmare until I got my freedom, which is because I have stayed alive and am hopeful.
The words of Anthony, an artist held in the Northwest Detention Center. I really miss the sun. Since November 12, 2016, I have been detained. My only crime is being an immigrant. My experience here is very emotional, deprived, suppressed, miserable, dreadful, fearful, depression, emptiness, loneliness, and painful. No contact visits with family or friends. There are no programs to help us deal with what we're going through. Can't really get any medical care. Our movement is basically restricted to a small area.
Some of those held are asylum seekers, newly arrived and traumatized, driven from their homes by desperate conditions. Others are longtime residents, ripped away from families, wives, husbands, children, their jobs, their lives. From a detainee expressing the psychological torment felt by thousands.
One day here is like 1 year. I cry so much. I fear that I will die in here.
Many have died, including children. We say the names of the children we know of to remind ourselves that they were once part of us, and we must remember them. Jacqueline, Amé, Rosemary Call McKean, whose life was stolen at 8 years old, presente. Felipe Gomez Alonso, whose life was stolen at 8 years old,
Presente.
Marley Juarez, whose life was stolen at 1 year old, presente. Juan de Leon Gutierrez, whose life was stolen at 16 years old, presente. Wilmer Vasquez, whose life was stolen at 2 years old, presente. Darlin Cordova Valle, whose life was stolen at 10 years old, presente. Carlos Hernandez Vasquez, whose life was stolen at 16 years old, sick with a high fever, left to die on a cold concrete floor in an immigrant prison, presente. All who have died behind these unjust walls and wire, presente. In their names, we declare, close the camps, reunite the families, close the camps, send the children free. Never again is now. Close the camps. Never again is now. Close the camps.
In the words of Cornel West, justice is what love looks like in public. Sometimes the voice of justice can be heard in the words of witness. Sometimes the voice of justice can be heard in the strains of a song. And sometimes justice roars to life in a million voices that echo through the streets in impatient determination. We hear those voices today from Lebanon to Chile, from Iraq to Puerto Rico, Ecuador to Algeria, Hong Kong to Colombia. The people roar, and the corrupt and heartless would-be dictators tremble. Should we not welcome that here and say together, out with those in power who conspire to cause suffering. Out with those who build cages, and camps, and prisons, who tear families apart. Out with those who cage and put children in jail. We say, let's say it all together. Close the camps. Reunite the families. Set the children free. Close the camps. Reunite the families. Set the children free. Close the camps. Reunite the families. Set the children free.